Blenkiron is the touring coach of Asia Muhammad and one of the founders of No Quit Academy in Las Vegas. His ties to Las Vegas run deep. He won the NCAA doubles title while at UNLV and later helped grow high-performance training as the director of tennis at Andre Agassi's Boys and Girls Club. Now Blenkiron brings his knowledge and love for the game to you.
I think passion would probably be the #1 thing to make a great coach.
Here we go.
I believe in a very systematic approach. We work very hard every day, and we do it day after day, and out of that comes results.
Forward, forward, forward. Just like that, T, and you make her pay for that.
But, you know, on the flip side, I don't think you're going to find too many people that like tennis as much as I do. I've been playing tennis since I was 2 years old. And, you know, it's now been over 30 years, and I haven't been able to put down my racket.
Nice. Big ball.
I've known Asia since she was 11 years old. She's really been like a second daughter to me. And I think in many ways I've been a second father to her. And that's really one of the great parts of coaching tennis, becoming a big part of someone's family. Good. And hopefully a very positive influence on them. I've been in Las Vegas 18 years now, and as you can probably notice, I still wear my Australia necklace. The kids actually make jokes that they think I never take it off, which I actually hardly do.
Tuesdays we'll be hitting a ton of balls, and then we might be putting in some patterns.
The foundation of this academy is not so much about the tennis. We have good drills, we have a physical fitness program, but really it's about life. And it's really the no-quit attitude that you take into life and take onto the tennis court that matters. That was my evolution as a tennis player, and what better than to put it right there in the name? I mean, it's just a constant reminder of what we're out here to do. If you can pull off a difficult overhead, it can really change the nature of a tennis match and put the odds in your favor.
Got Asia with me here today to hit some overheads. Get up there, get up there, get up there, get up there. All right, back in, close fast, split, hold. Nice. You notice that she'll use her feet really well. This is one of the real keys to hitting a good overhead, which will allow her to time it well and obviously get some power.
Most players can hit an easy overhead. It's not that difficult. However, to pull off the game-changing overhead, to hit the tough overhead, I've got a couple of pointers to really help you with that. #1, take your racket up with 2 hands. If you can take the racket up with 2 hands, rather than parting in the beginning, you'll get an automatic shoulder turn. #2, use a crossover step. When you first learn the overhead, most players sidestep back to the ball, but in all honesty, that's the slowest way to move on the court. By using a crossover step, now you can get into a run. Running is obviously much quicker. The crossover step, with taking the racket up with 2 hands, will get you a great shoulder turn and give you a lot of power on your overhead. #3, use a good scissor kick. It's not an easy move, but if you can execute that, you can pull off balls that are behind your head and really change the momentum of a game. Last but not least, when you pull off a difficult overhead, it is usually going to be behind you. Because it's going to be behind you, you've got to utilize a good wrist snap in order to get the ball back down on the court. If the ball is behind you and you hit straight ahead, you're going to miss it long every time. So you've really got to pronate well with your wrists in order to get that ball down before the baseline.
Get up, get up, get up. Nice. So the key elements to a difficult overhead we're looking for, take the racket up with 2 hands. We're going to do our crossover step. We're going to start running backwards, and then we're going to jump for the ball and then use our wrist in order to bring that ball back down on the court. So remember, practice your overhead. Not only will it really help you with your serve, but if you can pull off a couple of tough ones, it'll put a lot of pressure on your opponents to come up with really good passing shots.
We all want more pop in our ground strokes. This is where the ground part of ground strokes can really come into play. Here, Tim Blenkiron talks power.
Power is a huge part of today's tennis. And if you want to get power, you've got to use the ground. A good example of using the lower body to generate power is Roger Federer's forehand. What you'll notice is he starts every forehand with the ground, and that's really where he gets his power from. And even though he has quite a slight build, because he uses the ground and fires the energy up through his body in a kinetic chain, he's able to generate a lot of power even though he's not that big in stature. Load. Release. Very nice. Forward now. Good. Because footwork and using the ground to generate power has become such a big part of our game, we really have a lot of drills here at the Academy in order to work on that. Your most basic drill is just working on the loading and releasing itself. However, tennis is on the move. So in order to practice that, we've got to now make the player move. And by doing that, we move them out wide and then we make them come forwards. One of the reasons you see a lot of open stance forehands and backhands on the tour today is because of the use of the ground and the ability to twist. What an open stance allows you to do is hit the ball and generate power moving sideways as well as backwards. In order to generate power from the ground effectively, it obviously starts with the legs. And the key component to generating the power is a deep knee bend. You're going to get a deep knee bend with your right leg, but what I've found is one of the best ways in order to help that is if you actually drop your left knee down. So to do it effectively, you're going to load your leg out to the side and you're going to drop your left knee down. As you can see in this position, most of my weight is on my right leg now. Big load, big load. Excellent. Once you've got that deep knee bend, your legs are ready to spring. And your next move is going to be to explode up into the ball. And that explosion is going to come through your hip and then through your torso, allowing you to spin like a top or like a helicopter. We can get a lot of power through that twist. The key to the open stance forehand is the full commitment to the left leg after you hit. And what I mean by that is it's going to explode, then I'm going to come up off the ground, and I'm actually going to switch to my left leg. So I'm going to finish with a deep knee bend on my left leg, which is going to enable me to generate a ton of power. Load, release, good. Even though you see a lot of players using an open stance, the closed stance is still probably the most effective way to get power on a tennis ball. If you're going to move forwards, the most effective way is still to close up your stance and drive your body weight forward into the ball. You're not going to spin as much, but your legs are going to be bent like a spring and you're going to propel your weight more forward into the shot. If you're going closed stance, you're going to get your back leg down lower. So even though I'm going to step forward at the ball, I'm going to get that back leg down lower so my legs become like springs and are ready to explode into the shot. If you're using the ground effectively, what you're going to see is that your body weight often comes off the ground. One of the most common mistakes we see with the juniors and the club players is that they'll load their legs, but they won't propel themselves into the ball. Consequently, they'll pull themselves down and dump a lot of balls in the net. Ideally, you'll come off the ground every time. If you're using the ground effectively, you won't be able to stay on the ground and you propel all your energy into the shot. Today's game is a power game. And if you use your legs and lower body effectively, you can hit the ball at great speed no matter what build you have.
Whether you're a beginner or advanced, proper footwork is a must if you want to hit the ball well. Now, Tim Blenkiron gives some footwork drills to help you, regardless of your level.
To play at a high level, you've got to have great footwork. If your feet are not working for you, they're working against you. Fitness and footwork have never been as important in tennis as it is right now. Unless you're in supreme physical shape, and unless you have a good footwork foundation, you can't really compete at the top level. See guys like Songa who'd be easily comfortable on a football field, and he's bringing that power and that acceleration and that athleticism to the tennis court, hitting the ball at speeds that we've never seen before, and tracking down balls that have never been got before. Unless you have a strong footwork base, you can't really be successful in today's game. And by footwork base, what I mean is being able to execute the correct stances at the correct time and being able to recover efficiently so that you can get to that next ball that much quicker. For a smaller beginner player, we'll just basically get them to hit from a closed stance and work on recovering with a crossover step and a split step. Lean in. I'd feed a forehand, at which that time they'd hit from a closed stance. Recover with a crossover step and split. And then I'd feed them a backhand and they'd hit from a closed stance, recover with a crossover step and split. It's a very basic drill. It's probably the first thing that most of us learned when we first picked up a tennis racket. Excellent. Once they can execute that, we'll move on to an open stance, which is a little bit more complicated, but a big part of today's game. We're going to really teach them to use the ground a little bit more and really use their torso in order to get some power on the ball. Good, Mikey. Here we go, mate. Be strong. Here we go. Well done. For your intermediate players, the drills are going to get slightly more advanced. Good split now. Good split. I'd make the assumption that they can execute a closed stance from an open stance, and now we're really going to isolate one wing and make them hit from different positions in the court. A drill we like to do here is we'll isolate the forehand, move them out wide to hit an open stance forehand. They'll recover with a crossover step and split in the middle. Then we'll move them backwards and expect them to hit the ball high over the net with an open stance. Recover with a crossover step and split, and then we'll bring them forward and make them change to a closed stance. Hit the ball much lower to the net because it's their chance to hurt their opponent, and once again recover with a crossover step and a split step. So they're basically switching depending on where they are in the court and what ball they're receiving. Split. You can also do this from the backhand side. Good. Nice intensity. Okay, moving on to your advanced players. It's very much similar stuff, but what we're going to do now is we're going to make them hit with both sides of the body. We're not going to isolate the forehand or isolate the backhand. We're going to do them at the same time. Half X. So for example, we might do a half X where we'll make them go back and hit it from a deep forehand from an open stance. They'll recover with a crossover step and split, and then we'll make them come forward and hit a closed stance backhand down the line, about a foot over the net. Well done. So now we're working both sides at the same time. Here we go. You can work in the opposite direction as well, where you go hit from an open stance backhand off a deep ball, and then you make them come forward and hit a closed stance forehand. After that, we'll probably put them all together and make them hit all four at the same time. Your famous X drill. It's one of my favorite drills in tennis. But not only are you working both sides of the body, but you're working the feet. It's a very, very tough drill physically if you're doing it correctly. Footwork is huge in today's game, and it's really the base of being balanced on the tennis court. If you can't hit from a closed and an open stance and execute correct recovery, you're really going to struggle to be successful at a high level.
Most tennis players are doubles players, but no two teams are alike. Now Tim Blenkiron gives you strategies to combat the most common doubles formations.
Growing up in Australia, we played a lot of doubles. Doesn't matter whether you're a baseliner or a volleyer, find the formation which is right for you and you can have a lot of success. Most people in clubs these days are playing doubles. So what I'm going to go through today are your three basic formations, the ones that are most common on the doubles court, and your best ways to play those formations. If you've ever played on grass, you know you can get any bounce at any time. And so the strategy is to rush the net. If you like to play this style, there's a couple of tips I can give you. The first tip is understand that you are in the offensive position. There's no need to rush, there's no need to get carried away, there's really no need for big swings. In addition, what you can do to make it a little easier on yourself is to keep your volleys low to the net. If you can keep your volleys low to the net, they now have to hit up on the ball, which creates time for you and will probably lead to an easy put-away volley. One of my favourite volleys, which I think is underutilised a lot in doubles today, is the short little dink volley. Requires a little bit of touch, but if you can execute it, your opponents are going to need to run forward, which a lot of them are not good at. So when you're playing your doubles, look for an opportunity to hit this shot, and you'll find that it'll be very effective. One of the most common styles today is the one-up, one-back formation. A couple things you got to keep in mind when you like to play this formation. Number one, as a net player, you've always got to be active. You're never going to stand around and what I call ball watch. You're never just going to stand there and watch the ball go backwards and forwards. If your opponent is hitting a ground stroke, you should be up very close to the net looking to be aggressive. Now, if you get passed, you need to drop back 3 or 4 steps and cover the hole between you and your partner. That way, if the opposing net player goes to poach the ball, you will at least be in a defensive position in order to try and get that ball back into play. As the baseline player, it's very important to be unpredictable, especially if you've got a good poacher on the other side of the net. First thing you want to do is keep them honest by taking some ground strokes down the line. In addition, you want to use the lob, because a good poacher is usually very tight on the net. That's why they're effective, and you can lob them quite easily. Well done. The third most common formation is your two-back formation. Good job. There's a couple things that you need to keep in mind if you want to play that kind of formation. Number one, good time to play the two-back formation is when there's pressure on your opponent to finish out a set. Number two, you need to keep your ground strokes low to the net. And what this does is it stops your volleys from being overly aggressive, and they've really got to show some patience to be effective. Don't give the net players an opportunity to put the ball away. Number three, use the middle of the court. It often creates a lot of confusion, and oftentimes players will let the ball go rather than getting a racket on it. Doubles is a lot of fun. There's a lot of different ways you can play it, a lot of different formations. However, the most important element to being successful on a doubles court is to pick a good partner. When a kid finally breaks through on a concept, I mean, that's really what keeps you going day in and day out. See, Kimmy, on that ball there, you just explain it differently, and you just never know what it's going to take for a player to click. And it doesn't really matter if it's in the moment or, you know, it's after a tournament. You know, they come back and they say, you know what, I finally understood what it was that you were trying to get me to understand. That's definitely what we're fighting for out here, for that knowing smile. I think that's really important with tennis, okay? Pretty much anything we do out here, if a tennis coach is doing his job properly, he's really impacting the students' lives for the better. Really, at the end of the day, that's what gets me out of bed. I mean, it's not so much about producing great high-level tennis players, which we've been successful doing, but it's more about the impact on their lives and what they're going to carry away when their tennis career is over.